The truth about 200-year lives, when immortality is scarier than death. Imagine this. You wake up one morning in the year 2285. You realize you are 200 years old. The world outside your window has changed beyond recognition. The city has a new name. People speak a different language, but you are still here. Your body is young and healthy. There are no diseases, no wrinkles. But a cold emptiness has settled in your heart. The people you once loved are long gone. Your memories fade like smoke, and you realize that maybe death was never as scary as living forever. For thousands of years, humans have been obsessed with the dream of immortality. From Gilgamesh, the Babylonian king who sought the water of life, to Chinese emperors who drank mercury for eternal youth, the thirst for endless life has burned in every civilization. This dream once lived only in legends. In the 21st century, it moved into the laboratory. Advanced biotech began to discuss slowing down or even reversing biological aging. Tech giants like Google's Calico and Jeff Bezos' Altos Labs invested billions of dollars into this research. Experiments on mice, worms, and even monkeys showed promising results. By reactivating youth genes, they could increase an animal's lifespan by 40–50%. Some optimistic scientists believe that in the next 100 years, humans could live to 150 or even 200 years old while staying as healthy as a 40-year-old. Sounds great, right? But few people ask, could we truly endure such a long life? Consider the story of Elias Grant. Born in 2085, he was the first person to join a whole-body cellular regeneration program. This technology gradually replaced his old cells with new ones. It kept his body in a permanent state of being 35 years old. At first, Elias felt like a master of time. He studied everything: philosophy, physics, music, and AI programming. He traveled the globe, visiting floating cities where humans and robots coexisted, but time eventually became his greatest enemy. Elias watched his son pass away, then his grandson. Decades passed, and he remained unchanged. The people around him died, and their memories vanished with old cultures. New languages emerged. New values took shape. One day he realized he no longer belonged anywhere. Psychologists call this phenomenon temporal isolation. A person who lives too long becomes a traveler lost in time. They no longer connect with society. A study in Frontiers in Psychology suggested that a human sense of purpose relies on the finiteness of life. Without limits, motivation disappears. No deadline means no goals. No fear of loss means no joy of gain. Elias began to forget why he existed. The days repeated themselves. There was no beginning and no end. He stopped celebrating birthdays. After all, what was the difference between his 170th and 180th birthday? One day he looked in the mirror. His face was still young, but his eyes were empty. He thought to himself, perhaps immortality isn't a victory over death, but an endless punishment. From a biological perspective, immortality is a very dangerous idea. The human body is designed to age in an orderly way. If we interfere too much, the balance will collapse. Researchers warn that forcing cells to constantly regenerate can lead to copying errors, genetic mutations, and diseases like cancer. The brain is our most complex software. It cannot regenerate forever without data loss. Old memories are overwritten, like a hard drive filled after hundreds of years. Even if the body lives forever, a person's memory and identity will wear out. We would become a breathing shell without a complete soul. And what would happen if a human society truly reached a 200-year lifespan? What would a world without death look like? There would be no room for new generations. The economy would stagnate because older people would not retire. Younger people would have no opportunities. Love would become fragile because forever is now too long a promise. Could you love the same person for 180 years? Humans would live on, but society would stop evolving. There would be no life, aging, illness, and death. There would be no cycle to drive change. The entire planet would be filled with immortal beings, a seeming paradise that is actually a prison of stagnation. Ancient philosophers warned against this. Epicurus once said, "The fear of death is a misunderstanding of life." Life is valuable precisely because it is finite. We cherish every moment because we know it will end. If a flower never wilted, we would never appreciate its beauty. If the sunset never faded, the evening would lose its romance. Death is not the enemy. It is a necessary part of what makes life meaningful. When he reached his 200th year, Elias sat alone on the shore of an artificial sea. He watched the sun set over a strange city he no longer understood. A holographic message appeared on the screen beside him. "Happy 200th birthday, Elias." He smiled faintly and turned it off. There was no one left to celebrate with him, no one left to remember him. He had watched everything change, but he himself had not. And he finally understood immortality is not about outliving others, it's about watching everything you love leave you forever. In truth, humans have always had their own kind of immortality. It's just not what we imagined. We live on in the memories of others. We live on in what we leave behind. An idea, an action, a love. Death ends the existence of the body, but it cannot erase the impact of a life well lived. What is truly terrifying is not death. It is living without leaving anything memorable behind. Elias eventually chose to end his own life. He went into his final deep sleep, not out of despair, but because he had found the answer. Immortality is not found in the number of years you live, but in how you live each day. Perhaps humans were not born to live forever. We were born to live just long enough to understand the meaning of life. You don't need 200 years to find happiness. You only need one moment to feel truly grateful for your existence. That is when you touch eternity. So, instead of asking, "How do I live forever?" ask, "How can I live a life worth remembering?" Because true immortality is not in the body. It is in the memories, the compassion, and the mark we leave on the hearts of others.